Welcome to another episode of Heavenward Thinking. Today we have a special guest with us, my friend Anthony, up at Lakeview Community Church. We're going to be talking about Matthew chapter 5, verses 10 through 16, and what it means to be a Christian in a secular environment. Specifically for Anthony, it'll be about his experiences as a Christian in a secular school. So we're going to get started. I'm going to read in two different versions like we usually do, and then I'm going to turn it over to Anthony to tell us a little bit about his own experiences, and hopefully it'll give you guys some encouragement on how to live boldly for Christ in your own environments. So in Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 10 in the NIV, "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything, except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." And then in the Message version, "You're blessed when your commitment to God provokes persecution. The persecution drives you even deeper into God's kingdom. Not only that, count yourselves blessed every time people put you down or throw you out or speak lies about you to discredit me. What it means is that the truth is too close for comfort and they are uncomfortable. You can be glad when that happens. Give a cheer even, for though they don't like it, I do. And all heaven applauds. And know that you are in good company. My prophets and witnesses have always gotten into this kind of trouble. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here to be salt seasoning that brings out the God flavors of this earth. If you lose your saltiness, how will people taste godliness? You've lost your usefulness and will end up in the garbage. Here's another way to put it. You're here to be light, bringing out the God colors in the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? I'm putting you on a light stand. Now that I put you there on a hilltop, on a light stand, shine. Keep open house. Be generous with your lives. By opening up to others, you'll prompt people to open up with God, this generous Father in heaven." So, Anthony, if you could give our listeners a little bit of your own experience as these verses put about persecution for being a Christian and what it means to really be a light in a dark world in a secular environment.
First, I'd like to thank you for having me on your show. And I don't tell this story to too many people. I've only told it so far to the main people that I know and I trust with this story. But to the few people that I have told this story to, they've told me that it's helped them in experiences, and I hope that any of our viewers listening, if this is similar to your story, I just want you to know that you're not the only one. So I started out in grade school. This started out in pre-K, where I wouldn't say I'm the worst kid, but I wasn't exactly the best kid either. Like, I was sort of in a group where I was making bad decisions, but I wasn't necessarily bad. However, they started to catch up with me a bit, and essentially, you get labeled. When you start out early, you get labeled as either the good kid or the bad kid, and there's no way to change it afterwards. So I essentially was labeled as the bad kid group, and there was essentially the die had been cast, and there was no way for me to change it. So I had realized my actions, and it's at an age where you're still innocent in the way that you don't really consciously understand what good versus bad is yet. Like, your good decisions and your bad decisions, sometimes you just don't care, and you don't realize that what you do does count even at that young of an age. So essentially, what's been from there on out, essentially I was classified in that group. And it only became apparent to me over time that this wasn't what I thought. Like normally when you hear about stories about bullying, it's normally a couple kids, just a couple kids, and like just a couple loud voices, but it's not everyone, and you always hear people trying to tell you it's only a few. There are other people that are for you. And starting out, I think it was maybe 3rd or 4th grade, I all of a sudden realized that what I was experiencing was something completely different. And essentially, when I mean everyone, I legitimately mean everyone was against me.
Wow.
It was hard to know where to turn. I had at that point realized what I had done, and again, an age of innocence. So it really wasn't at that age something that you should really be ashamed of. But if you've already been classified, there's no way for you to just break free of that, because people remember things. And when essentially I've just been through elementary school, it was some pretty hellish years. I haven't really in those years really met anyone that have really been for me at all. It felt like I basically psyched up every single day, being able to tolerate that this is what it was, and there was nothing I could do to fix it. And this mentality basically got to the point where I didn't even care about any accomplishments. I didn't care about trying to pursue anything better than an average student. Even though I knew I could put in much more greater effort, I felt like there was no point in doing it. So I felt like I needed something to shift. And I felt like when you're going through something like this, it's really hard to describe, but you're going through it, you don't really think about how to get out of it. You just roll with it, and you wait for something. So this is basically how it went from pre-K to 5th grade. I still occasionally got in trouble because I didn't care to try and be any better than people were telling me I were. Or was. And I had teachers that had told my mom, and she's told me this today, but that they saw a potential in me, but I just didn't care enough to let it come out. And all the while, I'd come home, and I'd just sit in my room by myself, and I'd wonder, what was it I did? And what was it that caused all this? Because to this day, I still don't even really know what I did, but all I know is it's something that stuck. And by the end of 5th grade, I was getting really, really excited at the thought of middle school, because that's when all 4 of the elementary schools in the district would merge for 6th grade. which is the first grade in the middle school in our district, because I know some districts, the middle school starts in 5th grade. But when I went to middle school, my first thought was, this is a fresh slate. This is a chance for my name to be rewritten. So it was the first time I really started caring and attempting to try and be something better than what I was. And at first, it seemed things were going well. It seemed like I was finally starting to get like better at grades, starting to put in more effort. And it seemed like things were overall going really well for me. And then reality hit me in the face with all the same kids that I grew up with in elementary school are now telling everything to all 3 of these other districts that have joined in under the 6th grade. Because nothing can really be kept a secret. Everything, has to be just completely released and told to everyone. You can't really hide anything. So word spread, I guess. I mean, I'm not exactly sure how it did. I guess people had friends with other kids in the other districts before that, or they had started making friends with kids in 6th grade. But it started getting worse than what it had been before. It started becoming not just an occasional kid that I bumped through in the hallway. It became literal mobs surrounding me, harassing me. And it started getting to the point where it was almost unbearable. And for the first time, I had really started to realize what this was. This wasn't just regular bullying. This wasn't just a regular group of mean kids trying to attack me. This was something else. And I started praying more often than I had before. I had been praying in elementary school, but I hadn't really been too serious because I hadn't really believed it. And that's when I met my first and still one of my great friends, Drew Stortzglak, in my homeroom class in 6th grade. And he really was a godsend at that time because we were really alike. He wanted to basically read calculus books for fun. Literally for fun. He's read a calculus 1 and 2 textbook just for fun. And we just had a lot of fun talking about like science and tech and a whole bunch of stuff because those are some passions that we passionately share. And this is all the while all this other stuff is going on, and apparently it had gotten to the point it wasn't just now harassing me in front of me, it was now other things. Other rumors were being spread about me, things that I wouldn't like to mention, but were really bad, like some really bad things that they were trying to pin down on me. And he was now aware of them, and he didn't tell me about it, but I heard from my mom because my teachers had contacted my mom about it, but my mom basically, when I came home one day, she was like, "You don't know the friend you have. He just stuck up for you in a huge way." And it had started to gradually die down. It hadn't really stopped yet. Because it never stops, but it started to die down a little bit, where it was back to about how I was bearing it in elementary. And it was at that point I realized Drew had a twin brother named Nick, who I met in lunch one day, and I was like, wait, there's two of you. so I became really good friends with him too, because they all shared the same interests. So we started hanging out a lot. In fact, the first hangout we had was literally the day of that tornado. So that was pretty fun, because I think we were literally the only ones that went outside during that tornado, just for the heck of it. But it was a blast. So at that point, like, it was still going on. But it was starting to become something that I could tolerate, now that I had people I knew sticking up for me. And then about a year or 2 years later, I met Dominic Slaypack, who, I don't know if you'll be watching this, but he's the complete opposite. He absolutely loves sports, an absolute hockey fanatic. He could easily make it in the NHL, like, no doubt about it. And it's funny because we kind of just he kind of just came in randomly, like I was already great with the group, and then he came along, and we just really got to know each other very well, and he became one of my really great friends as well. And come to find out, he has a twin brother named Nick too. So I guess you can piece it together. I now have 4 best friends who are all twins, and one on each side is a Nick. It's crazy how things turn out. But bottom line is, I had now 4 friends, and now I knew, hey, I've got really tough guys. If I need them, they're there for me.
Yeah.
This was, I believe, 7th grade. 8th grade was generally a much better year. At this point, my education completely flipped. Like, I had been one of the lower students who hadn't really cared, to the point where I was getting 90s and above for every single class. And I really, really got to know my teachers very well, and we all had our fun share of time just, talking about stuff, and we really like I actually miss those teachers, because I grew some really good bonds with them. But 8th grade had ended, and last year I'd started ninth grade. And one of the biggest differences was when you're in high school, they kind of throw you around. Like, you really don't know who you're going to be with. So I had my friends in a few classes, but essentially I had gotten back to the point where I'm still very good friends with them. I'm still hanging out with them, but I'm essentially alone in the school building. So I started to get a bit discouraged again because everything that had happened before had just come back up. Like, hey, you forgot I was here, but I'm here. And it basically, it hadn't escalated, but it still got me down. And I was like, when is this going to end? When are people going to forget? And it finally clicked with me last year. And I'm like, you really can't trust one single thing to keep you sane, to keep you just to keep you from getting discouraged. You can't trust one thing that will help protect you in a time where you need it. One single thing. And then I realized I have something that nobody else has. And that's Jesus. And I mean, in that building, I know there were other Christians there. I hadn't met them yet, but I knew they were there. But when you're in a public school setting, you just have no sort of message about God in any way other than how it's taught secularly. And I came to realize that it was that there was a God all along who could have just helped me through all of it. And I finally stopped ignoring it and trying to get around the fact that he can actually help me. He could actually help me to get through the moments that I just felt alone. And from this point on, I really haven't thought about kids. They still come up to me. They still somewhat harass me, but I really just dismiss it. It really doesn't affect me anymore because I know what it is now. And as far as education goes, it had flipped to middle school. It is now at the point where I am on a district-wide committee for technology, and we are going to be rolling out a one-to-one laptop system for students. And I'm going to be a big part of the team that will be getting ready for the IT jobs, because students will be taking on the roles of some IT jobs. Whoever wants to sign up in our district can do that. But I was also recently one of my computer courses, a robotics course I'm taking, my teacher wanted me to take another step and basically gave me an assignment for NASA for robotics.
That's amazing.
and it's just blown me away how big a shift this has happened in these few short years. But I know it's only something God could have done.
Absolutely. Well, that is an amazing testimony you gave there. I think it's a great perspective for people to understand that as Christians in a secular setting, we're going to constantly be persecuted, harassed, we're going to be put down, we're going to be insulted, made fun of, and it can be very overwhelming for, I think, a lot of us and a lot of our viewers. That it can be overwhelming whenever we try to make a stand for Christianity, and like you said, you had multiple times throughout your academic years, you were persecuted for your faith, and didn't even at first, it sounds like you didn't even realize what it was about until way later on. But I love how you said once you started to realize that God is there to help you through it, and that you aren't alone. You have friends, you have God helping you through. What an encouragement to know that we aren't alone, no matter how dark a situation, especially in the secular world. Looking at these verses we were looking at tonight, what do you see in your own experience and just in these verses about how Christians are to be the light of the world? And it doesn't offer a set of excuses for Christians about that, if it's too hard for you, don't worry about it. It says very specifically we're to be the light of the world and to shine even when we're persecuted. Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, that's completely true. There is no excuse. But for people that have had stories like mine, or even for people that haven't, you're not alone in the situation. If you were, but if you aren't, and you have a big group of friends, and you have had a smooth ride, you're here for a purpose. God put you here for a purpose, and you're to fulfill that purpose. And if you don't know what that is, you can pray, you can ask God for wisdom regarding what it could be, what you should be doing, but you shouldn't be afraid to take a stand wherever you are. And I think you're even seeing that in our nation. People at this moment are just afraid to speak any sort of personal belief, any sort of personal view. And let me just tell you, whatever voices, no matter how big or small they are, they're just voices. They cannot contain you. You can make your own decisions. You can be your own voice. You control your own destiny. God can set the destiny for you, but you're the one to follow it. And it's your decision. You can go with the flow, with the crowds. You can make the same decisions they do. You can do the same things they do, but know where it leads you. And that's not closer to God. And for those who don't think God helps them in the situation, if you can just grasp for a moment that the creator of the universe, who built something as intricate as the atom, everything's infinite space, and yet you can think, you can feel, you can see, and he designed it. It's all by design. And he cares about you, one little being, and not just now, through the vast distance of time. He cares about you, and he wants to see you in heaven with him, and he wants you to grab along as many people as you can for the ride. And it's just really something completely unimaginable just how it all works. It's just incredible to think about how he just made it that way. He could have made it any other way. He could have made you to just be designed to only follow him, not choose your own path. But he'd rather have creation that loves him than something that just artificially loves him.
Absolutely. Well, Anthony, we want to thank you so much for appearing on this show and for sharing your testimony. I'm sure our viewers will enjoy it. Thank you so much. And I just want to challenge our viewers to listen to what Anthony said today and maybe look at your own life and how maybe you have been persecuted, and to take some encouragement away from this, that you're not alone and that you can depend on God. And if maybe you haven't been persecuted, I challenge you to take a look at your faith and think about, are you persecutable? Are you demonstrating the qualities of a Christian? Are you letting people know that you are a Christian? So many times I think nowadays we hide our faith because we think we have to in society. We think we have to at our job. We think we have to around other people. And we should be living as Christians in whatever setting we are, whether it be in a church setting or whether it be in a secular setting. Just like Anthony said, we're here for a purpose. So I challenge you, our listeners, as we are undergoing our task of trying to find out what heavenward thinking is all about. This is a huge part of it, being a light for Jesus. So join us next time for another Heavenward Thinking and another guest.